Good morning and welcome to Trends in the Papers on 98.3 Mainland FM. We'll be looking through the major trending stories on the front pages of our dailies. My name is Mobola Sandra. I'll be having Fuhad Saheed joining in via the phone line to give analysis to every one of the stories that we will be treating this morning. We'll take this up until 8:30 and then by 8:40 we move on to Mainland Focus, where we'll pick one or two major trending stories and open up the phone line for you, our dear listener, to be a part of the conversation. We'd like to get your thoughts and your contribution as regards the focus for the day. And of course, after we'll take that up until 9:30, and then by 9:45 we'll converge again for Global View, where we'll be discussing international stories. It promises to be an interesting one. All you have to do is stay tuned and let's have, let's engage ourselves as we talk about national issues. All right, I'll be starting with the Guardian newspaper, of course, but before then, this week has been quite an interesting one for Nigerians so far, with less than 6 days to the inauguration of the 16th president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. There's so much excitement in the air. There's also a lot of apprehension in the air, as the security officials, the security agents are certainly putting things in place as regards security around Eagle Square, Abuja, which is the venue of the inauguration for on Monday. Of course, there have been indications that there may be some sort of inconveniences on that day. So hence, so many security alerts going round. So I'd advise we all just be careful. All right, of course, even as the inauguration is happening the presidential inauguration, is happening in Abuja, would also be happening the inauguration of governors-elect and their deputies across the 36 states of the country. All right, so there's going to be a lot of conversation on that day. It's May 29, but obviously it's going to be a public holiday. And Mainland 98.3 FM, as usual, will be on the front line ensuring to give you up-to-date information as it is hot, whatever is happening at the inauguration grounds in Abuja and also here in Lagos, even in Ogun State and Oyo State, to ensure that you know what is happening. We'll also give you live feeds as regards the speeches from the outgoing president and even the incoming president. It promises to be an interesting and engaging one, so I would encourage that you stay tuned to Mainland 98.3 FM on Monday, May 29, where we inaugurate the 16th president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, back to trends in the papers. As I mentioned earlier, I have the papers here with me, The Guardian, The Punch, Vanguard, and New Telegraph. Don't forget that we are live on Facebook and YouTube, so you can as well follow the program there and drop your comments on our live streams at Mainland 98.3 FM. Before we move on, we have our analyst joining us via the phone line. Good morning, Fuhad.
Yeah, good morning, Sandra. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you very much. And thank you for joining. Are you excited? We're having a new president on Monday.
Oh, I'm a bit thinking, really. Again.
We have to be optimistic. So many.
I am optimistic, but not so excited about, all that. Well, again, it's a good one that we're going to have in, the 16th president, but a lot on my mind, really, and that's why I'm not really so excited.
Well, some people would argue that, it's a win for democracy, the fact that every 4 years, the tradition stands, it continues, there's been no scuttle or any issues.
Well, it will be a win for democracy when Nigerians begin to enjoy the dividends of democracy. That's when we'll have a win. But for now, I don't think we have a win until we begin to see real dividends of democracy. I think I just take this like, another cycle of change of power, But then we'll see how it goes.
Well, power must change hands. Let's move on to the Guardian newspaper. I'll start with the major headline on the front page of the Guardian, which says division over oil surge in North as NNPC returns to Lake Chad. So the information that we're getting now is that some 6 years ago, there was a halt on the exploration activities in the north, especially in Lake Chad in Borno State, due to kidnapping and killing of some workers at the Lake Chad Basin by Boko Haram insurgents. So, as it is now, there are concerns now over continuous prospectivity of oil and gas in the north, as the president, who also doubles as Minister of Petroleum, flagged off resumption of exploration activities in Lake Chad, Borno State. We're also looking still on this particular story. There are riders. We have questions over capacity of NNPC board amidst commercial viability. Inland basin exploration is fraud, says ex-Mossop president. Zulum, that's governor of Borno State, Babagana Zulum. Uh, Borno will benefit from being an oil-producing state. That is what we have here. But just before I look to Fuhad for your thoughts as regards this conversation, some stakeholders, still from this report, especially from the oil-rich Niger Delta, insist that the ongoing exploration is fraudulent and political instead of following business justification. What are your thoughts?
Well, I read the story this morning, and I'm like, where exactly is that coming from? But again, if you understand what they are saying about business justification, that exploration started in the 70s, about 40 years ago. We've been making attempts to discover oil in the Chad Basin. It was abandoned about a few years ago because of insecurity in that area and all of that. But now the president has flagged off continuous exploration. Although there have been indications that there could be deposits of crude oil of commercial quantity within that region. I think sometime some few years ago, I think a number of gas indications were discovered and all of that. But again, I'm not so concerned about what anybody says about these activities. I think somewhere in Nasarawa State, oil has been discovered in commercial quantity and all of that. So we'll continue to, in fact, it's not only that part of the country, even in the southwest, in part of the southeast, you have indications of exploration going on and all of that. But look, my concern is when we discover the oil, what are we going to do with it eventually? Because as it is, there are still questions as to whether the oil that we discovered in the 70s in Nigeria, in the 60s, and then of course exploration in the 70s, is actually a blessing or a cost. To a lot of countries on the OPEC platform, it's actually a blessing. But can we say that's actually been a blessing to Nigeria or a cost, really? So it's not so much about what we are doing now in terms of oil exploration in the north. It's about what exactly will come out from it. I understand the political angle that the Mossop people are talking about. That look, it's just about balance of power. It's about pushing some northern states to become oil-producing states, and then they can also be part of the largesse. But the reality is, as a nation, even if we discover oil in every state in Nigeria, will that transform the lives of Nigerians? Will it ordinarily better the living standards of Nigeria?
So accountability.
Accountability, transparency, because as it is, there are people who even argue that, the exploration of oil is what leads to mono economy, and that's the problem. We're supposed to diversify our economy. Sandra, even if we decide to run a mono economy, Saudi Arabia runs an economy. It's only oil. But they are doing well. Their cities are living fine. They are doing well. Their GDP is very good. Their economy is standard and fast. So running a mono economy is not the problem. The question is, where is accountability and transparency in what you do? Can we guarantee that would account for the number of oil, the amount of oil we're able to explore and sell? So, but again, it's a good one that the president is so committed. If he has not done anything as Minister of Petroleum, at least his commitment to finding oil in the spot is well. And on the last series of, presidents, you can see that he's still committed to that same black hole. That oil must be covered in the north.
All right, thank you very much for that. I'll just also quickly like to ask from this same report, because it says here that some stakeholders are also raising concerns on the capacity of the board of NNPCL, which according to the PIA, that's the Petroleum Industry Act, is expected to help the state oil firm take the most viable investment decisions. What are your thoughts as regards the board of NNPCL? NNPCL now, Fuhad. Remember, there was this
transformation,
a transformation or a switch or whatever. Something happened, but do you think the concerns that are being raised on the capacity of the board of NNPCL to make viable investment decisions Do you think it is, truly founded?
As we speak, Sandra, remember, there are still questions as to the composition of the board of NNPCL.
Mm.
Because if you see you've transformed into a limited liability company and it's supposed to be now commercially run, how was the board composed? Who are the shareholders that sat down and chose the board of the NNPCL? So what we saw basically was the government appointing people and just taking over the boardship of the NNPCL. So there are questions as to the thinking capacity of the board members, really. Because again, if you are going to be coming from the way it was run as a government institution, then we may not really have sound decisions when it comes to the ability to take commercially viable decisions as far as that board is concerned. So a lot of questions as to the composition of the board. Mele Kyari was appointed by the government. He only transformed now as the DG of the NNPCL, and there are still questions as to that transformation process from NNPC to NNPCL. But again, you know that the incoming president has a lot of experience in the oil sector, and so a lot of people are hopeful that he's going to go in there and resolve some of these questions, and of course put the NNPCL into proper shape, so that it can begin to compete with companies like Aramco and some other companies of that nature. But again, it is too early to say what the direction of the new government will be on the composition of the NNPCL, the oil sector, and the reforms that are needed in that sector. We just have to wait to see what happens.
Well, more details on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. It's a long read. You can get all of the, the conversation and the concerns as regards the oil search or the prospectivity of oil and gas in the north, especially in Lake Chad, Borno State. Fuhad, let's also not forget that, we had a conversation earlier this year or late last year whether the oil that was found at Kumani, whether it was Bauchi or Gombe State. What's on
Well,
board? That one is also there.
I think the government will sort that out eventually.
Well,
because
that's just on the lighter note. Moving on. Stories on page 6. Let's move on now. Still on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. We also have here 6 days to go. Buhari clears over 40 pending memos and appoints agency heads. And that is also on page 6. And we have riders to that. Buhari, Niger Republic will defend me after handover.
The man is just threatening us in the Republic. And I know if you don't want me, I go to Niger Republic. He said it several times.
That's amazing. Niger Republic will defend me after handover. President defends huge debt profile. Seeks Senate approval for 22 billion naira reimbursement to 2 states. Explained closure of land borders. Says only God can secure Nigeria's borders. Buhari appoints 33 new directors across aviation agencies. Gwandu as Naseni's new CEO. Buhari setting trap for Tinubu with last-minute engagements, Shehu Sani alleges. Ndume to sue federal government for $800 million World Bank loan. So, it's 6 days to the exit of President Muhammad Buhari, and while transition activities are expected to begin today with a valedictory Federal Executive Council meeting, the president is surprisingly making his last few days in office with an unprecedented burst of energy not seen in the last 8 years.
Hey, you.
Amid last-minute rash approvals and appointments. Despite a very busy Tuesday packed with a series of activities and projects commissioning, the president presided over an extraordinary FEC meeting. Well, just basically, what we have here is that the council considering 40 memos from various ministries, departments, and agencies. We also have here the fact that 28 memoranda that could not be considered were also reviewed alongside. Shortly after, the president said he has built personal cordial relationship with neighboring countries, stressing that should anyone disturb him after leaving office, his Niger Republic neighbors will defend him. There's a lot of breakdown as regards what was discussed at the FEC meeting. But then I'm just going to pick something out here, Fuhad. This report, very interestingly put by the Guardian newspaper, that an unprecedented burst of energy that's not seen in the last 8 years, that we seem to see the president, engaging in so many things. I'm sure you saw the statement as regards, the land borders, where the
Mm-hmm.
president said that, oh, he closed the land borders and now Nigerians are thankful for it. And there's a lot of things, that we are seeing in the last few days of this current administration. I remember yesterday we had a conversation with Sage as regards Hadi Sirika, and Fuad, for the past 8 years, I don't think
Mm.
Hadi Sirika's name, was as prominent as the last
In our
few
newspapers, yeah.
in the last few months. Last year it was
Mm.
Abubakar Malami that was all over the papers. So, what would you think as regards all of these decisions, all of these appointments, all of this memo signing off, all of this let's use the word from the guy.
Appointment, yeah.
Yes, this burst of energy that's been seen from the president in these last few days. What can you make of it?
Well, again, I don't know where the energy is coming from, because one would think that, close to an over date, it will just be more about, thinking of how to share notes, how to hand over, at this point it should even be about, oh, thanking God for what you've been able to do in the last 8 years. But again, maybe, to break the tape, that's when the energy comes, the last lap of a race is when you see people put in the last energy,
So,
to,
like people that
you
say they
understand?
work better under pressure.
And maybe under pressure of the last minute of a race, that's
Mm.
when you see athletes giving their last shot, to win the race. But again, what I think is that I really don't want to go the line of Shehu Sonny to say, oh, whatever the president is doing is setting a booby trap for the incoming government.
I
I
was
just
getting
think,
there as well. Yes.
but my mind tells me that, look, there are a number of ministers who think that, look, they can quickly squeeze in this memo and get it passed at this last minute. If you look at all of the appointments that was mentioned in this report, they are from the aviation sector.
Yes.
Yeah, did you notice?
Majority. I
Uh,
mean, yeah, majority of it.
a majority of them from the aviation sector. And when I was reading the story, Sandra, I was like, so we have these too many agencies in the aviation sector.
Mm.
If you remember, there's a Steve Orosanya report that talks about, how we can merge a lot of these agencies and ministries.
Yes.
If you read the story, there are too many agencies, parastatals, and ministries doing almost the same thing, overlapping functions. But that's not the major thrust of this particular story. It's just about that last minute energy that we're seeing from the president and the presidency.
Mm.
And I say that, look, it's a choice. It's a choice they decided to take. That this last minute they will make sure that everything counts, that they've not done it for 8 years. But I think that, look, if it's about productive appointments, it's about the fact that, look, the government is a continuum and whatever they do will not necessarily create a problem for the incoming government. I think you just have to leave it at that. But when they become destructive, I'm sure the incoming government will also find a way, to clean the mess. Although would appeal that whatever they do now, they should ensure that there's peaceful transmission and don't set up booby traps for the incoming government that would be inheriting a lot of baggages, too many baggages that you have to carry.
All right.
But again, it's a choice that the presidency has decided to make. Let them continue. It's just 6 days to hand over. We'll see what happens.
Mm. But I also like us to look at this. Seems from that same report, we have here that the president is also defending the huge debt profile bedeviling his administration, which is put at 77 trillion naira. Saying that his administration invested in infrastructure, yes, as a deliberate way to fight poverty and create jobs for economic development and prosperity. What would you say about that?
You see, again, a lot of the supporters of the president will tell you that, oh, when it comes to infrastructure, this is probably the best time for the country in the last, 24 years, from 1999 till date. That when it comes to infrastructure, it's probably achieved the best. Again, they talk about the second Niger Bridge, the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and a number of projects like that. Even the railway that, somehow has now come back to life. Yes, I agree that, to a great extent we borrowed money, and there are some of these things that we can see on ground as achievements for the borrowing that we've made. What about security? We built the railway lines now. People are even afraid to use it. And other ones, I think in Edo State also had an attack on the train stations and all of that.
Mm.
Yes, we agree that, look, these governments did quite, they did a lot when it comes to trying to improve our infrastructure in the country. But its failure in the area of security and other areas like the economy is the reason why those things may not really count, or the reasons why Nigeria are not really seeing the benefit of all those investments. So fighting poverty, improving the living standards of the people and the economy has to be holistic. If you do well in one part and you fail in other parts, it probably will rub off negatively on it. So again, 77 trillion infrastructure, is it justifiable? And I doubt that what we have in terms of infrastructure can justify for the amount of debt to be incurred. But again, I will continue to talk about it and hopefully get some reasonable answers after this government has left power.
Well, there's a lot of, it says to look at that we should look at it as assets and investment profiles, that we should look at the debt profile as an asset due to the fact that it was spent judiciously on infrastructure. Well, just as you have also mentioned, I mean, is it worth it? That's another thing, to look at. Thank you very much, Fuhad, for that very enlightening one. More details on page 6 and 20, pages 6 and 28 of the Guardian newspaper. All right, we also have here concerns as Buhari withhold assent to sexual harassment bill, days to exit. Oh, one would think that the energy will also cross into, this particular one, but it's an entire page read. What we have here is that worried by issues of sexual harassment and rape of children and women in the country, federal lawmakers in 2016 took steps to reverse the trend by producing a legal instrument that criminalizes the act. Senator Ovie Omoagege and 106 senators sponsored a bill which seeks to prohibit sexual harassment in tertiary institutions. The Senate in July 2020, after the third reading, passed a bill for an act to prevent, prohibit, and redress sexual harassment of students in tertiary institutions and for matters concerned therewith 2015. It's a very, very long read as regards how they have been so far. But then, they're currently worried by the president's refusal to sign the bill. Some civil society organization led by the Anti-Sexual Harassment Advocacy Cluster in September 2022 appealed to the president to sign the bill and put an end to the menace. Speaking on the bill and issues surrounding it becoming law, immediate past secretary, NBA, Nigerian Bar Association, described the bill as a step in the right direction. Fuad, is there anything that you may see as the reason as to why the president seems to be holding off on signing the sexual harassment bill?
Honestly, I can't. I don't know why he has decided not to sign it. One would think that these are the kind of bills he'll be so excited and eager to quickly sign off, because these are bills on public morality and decency that we should encourage. But again, if he doesn't sign it, I'm sure the incoming government may do something about it. There are a lot of bills that are pending anyways that was supposed to get the attention of the president and he has not done anything with. So I think we just have to leave some of these things to the incoming government to see how they are going to handle it.
Yes, but Fuad, I would like to ask a question. We know how it has been a struggle, and in recent times there have been videos and pictures and reports, a lot of reports on sexual harassment, especially against children and all of that. Now, some people are concerned. Why have the federal lawmakers, why are they waiting so long without vetoing the refusal of the president to assent to the bill?
Well, it's about priority and what they consider very important. Because again, if the president refuses to assent, they can veto the bill and make sure it becomes a law. But again, it's about priority. And you must also understand the demography of the National Assembly, if you understand what I'm saying. This issue, yes, one may think it's about public morality and there's supposed to be consensus on the thinking pattern of our lawmakers to this particular bill. But if you really understand where I'm coming from, again, when it comes to sexual harassment, it's also about personal interpretation. The things we consider as sexual harassment, for example, is there a unanimous understanding of it in that house? Culturally, if you understand the cultural perception to sexual harassment, for example, I don't want to be too deep into it, but I'm sure you should try to understand what I'm trying to say.
No, I get it.
So, because the thing, for example, the thing I, from my own cultural perspective, religious perspective, consider as sexual harassment may not be what the other person, because of his own cultural orientation, considers as sexual harassment. If you understand what I'm saying, it may just be normal.
Perspective is also very important. Because
So,
it says in the report here that could it even be because they think that there are other laws that prohibit sexual harassment, and as such, those ones should be serving the purpose of protecting the students and all.
no, this particular bill is clear about, you see, when we say sexual harassment, it's too general a term. So what you have in the bill is a clear definition of what constitutes sexual harassment and how it should be punished. Sexual offenders, they take advantage of some of this lacuna in the law that is not really clear about what constitutes sexual harassment. If you understand what I'm saying, you get punished for this, you do this, this is what you get as punishment. So I think we should be excited about what the law and putting parties. But again, if the House does not consider it a priority to veto the president and the president is not assenting to it, I think that we've done with several other cases, we just have to go to see what the incoming government and the incoming assembly will do with that bill.
All right. Well, as it is, the Constitution under Section 58(5) allows the legislature to override the assent with two-third majority of both houses. That is, if the president refuses to assent after being presented 3 times, they actually have the right to veto the decision by two-third majority. So why are they waiting this long before they can actually use that veto power? It's almost as if the veto power is non-existent. For don't you think? I don't think it has ever been used.
If you have a national assembly with the orientation of them as in the president, so they may consider even vetoing the president a form of embarrassment. So
all right.
Again, that's what we talk about having a very vibrant and independent assembly.
Okay, we also have here, very quickly now, I'll just read through the rest of the story. We have Nigeria absent as African leaders fault global debt financing models. That is on page 15 of the Guardian newspaper. I also have Kogi AG versus AGF. Supreme Court cautions against harassment of Kogi officials, pending outcome of suit. Just very quickly. The Supreme Court has cautioned Nigeria's anti-graft agencies against harassing officials and associates of the Kogi state government, pending determination of a suit instituted by the Attorney General of Kogi State against the Attorney General of the Federation, challenging the constitutionality of acts establishing some anti-graft agencies, including the Proceed of Crime Protection and Prevention Act 2022 and their applicability to the state. More details on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. So we have the Attorney General of the Kogi State going against the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami. Stories on page 3. And that's all we have from the Guardian newspaper. You're listening to Trends in the Papers on Mainland 98.3 FM. And we're looking through trending stories on the major on the front page of major papers. My name is Mobola Sandra. I have Fuhad Saheed giving analysis to our stories. And of course, you can as well join the program live on Facebook and YouTube at Mainland 98.3 FM. You can join the program live on YouTube and Facebook at Mainland 98.3 FM. All right, now we're moving on to the Punch newspaper very quickly. We have here the major headline: Tinubu's inauguration. Security agencies raid hotspots. Biden names U.S. delegation. And their riders. Housing and Urban Development Secretary to lead U.S. team to May 29 handover. Security agencies to restrict movements to Eagle Square beginning from Friday. UK ex-Prime Minister Tony Blair meets President-elect. Says running government a tough job. That is the major headline on the front page of the Punch. And very quickly, we'll just pick one or two on page 2 of that particular paper. All right, so the U.S. President has named a 9-member team to be led by the Housing and Urban Development Secretary. And there's the list of names, we have it here. We also have the police are ready. We do 24-hour patrols now, and also there are men in plain clothes on duty. The security agencies are also raiding black points, and any suspects found there will be arrested and cautioned. And also, movements in and around Eagle Square will be closed off from Friday, 26th of May 2023. So many things being put in place, especially against the backdrop of protests by some Nigerians dissatisfied with the election victory of the former Lagos State Governor. Security agencies have deployed plainclothes and intelligence operatives to contain any outbreak of violence on the day of the inauguration. Fuhad, a lot of things being put in place as we look forward to the inauguration of the president-elect, Bola Tinubu.
Well, these are security protocols, that should normally come with such an occasion. Because again, you're going to have a lot of dignitaries, a lot of foreign emissaries, presidents from different countries, ambassadors, and diplomats attending that event. So I think it's just normal for all this to have this extent of security arrangements being in place for such an occasion. So I don't think it's anything new, really, other than the fact that it's making the news every day because of our current situation with the last election. But I think it's just normal that, this amount of security is put in place for such an occasion. And then for people who are interested in protesting, I think the law is not against protest. It's just that, I must conform with the laws of the country in terms of ensuring that it's very peaceful. Yes, the protest may not be allowed to get too close to the Eagle Square, but I do know that for people who are interested in protesting, they may do it in other parts of Abuja. So far, they remain peaceful with it because the law guarantees people the right to protest. But I think what will not be allowed is any form of disobedience or disturbances around the Eagle Square, if you understand what I mean. So I think that's why the security officials are already making this statement and warning troublemakers to stay clear from the Eagle Square. Again, we say these things. It's important for us to note that, look, the law says the president-elect should be sworn in May 29. The court cases are still there. And we must understand that that's the last step of the election cycle. There's no reason for anybody, for example, to continue to call for interim or the ceremony should be postponed and all of that. Until we change our laws, reality is that, look, this swearing will happen, and then we'll wait for the court to decide. And whatever the court says is what we all have to accept at the end of the day. So a peaceful transition is something we must encourage and hope that we get better with our democracy.
Thank you very much, Fuhad. I'm also looking at just a quick one for our dear listeners. The inauguration programs will begin on Thursday with the investiture of Tinubu with the Grand Commander of the Order of the Federal Republic, while the Vice President-elect, Kashim Shettima, will be inaugurated as will be decorated as the Grand Commander of Order of the Niger, because the only person who can grant such honors is the president. So the outgoing president, has to do that before inauguration. Also on May 27, former Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta will deliver a lecture titled Deepening Democracy for Integration and Development. That will happen on Saturday. And all of this is according to the Secretary of the Government of the Federation, who doubles as Chairman of the Presidential Transition Council, Boss Mustafa. All of these activities also includes a regimental dinner in honor of the Commander-in-Chief at the Armed Forces Officers Mess, which was done yesterday, May 3rd. Today, May 24, we'll be having a valedictory Federal Executive Council meeting at the Council Chambers inside the Presidential Villa. We'll also be having a public lecture and Jumat prayer at the National Mosque on May 26. We'll also be having a Children's Day parade and party on May 27 and an interdenominational church service at the National Christian Center, while the inauguration and swearing square. There will also be a post-inauguration luncheon strictly for the president and his colleague presidents, heads of government, guests at the State House Banquet Hall after the inauguration ceremony. That's the breakdown of order of events as we look forward to the inauguration proper on Monday. More details on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Now we also have here Amosun to blame Dangote relocated refinery. Oh, I'm also to blame for Dangote relocated refinery to Lagos. All right. That conversation has been
Who
ongoing
is saying
now.
that?
That's coming from Abiodun.
They say yes. Yeah. Well, I go with you.
So that
Good for us.
conversation, yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted to read the story proper. You know that conversation had been going on. Oh, the Dangote refinery was
Initially, it was
supposed to
planned
be in
for Ogun State.
Ondo. Oh, I heard.
Ogun.
Oh, I mean, I heard Ondo. Okay, thank God for that. But now, what we have now is that the Ogun State governor now, Dakwa Abiodun, is trying to absolve himself of the blame that led to the relocation of the $19 billion Dangote refinery from Ogun State to Lagos. All right, so Abiodun, I'm reading now, who confirmed that he was chairman Olokola Free Trade Zone in Ogun
Mm.
Waterside during the administration of former Governor Ibikunle Amosun. He said he was not part of the moves that frustrated Dangote out of the state. So he should not be blamed for the loss. And it was actually done during Senator Ibikunle Amosun's administration. Fuhad, is it the
Well, I
time
know
now
that.
for us to
Yeah.
share blames, or can we just...
No. It's about for us to mention these things again, so that people are having a proper understanding of what happened. Initially, Dangote refinery was to be situated
in
at the
Ogun
local
State?
free trade here in Ogun State, the Ogun Waterside. That was the initial agreement. But up till now, you don't have a complete picture of what happened and why Dangote changed his mind and moved it to Lagos. There are people who said, okay, the reason why he decided to do that was that, look, that Ibejuleki agrees give him a better platform in terms of access to the ocean and all of that. But there are people who also said, oh, there were demands that were made by the former governor. These are allegations anyways,
Yeah.
which bordered on personal interest, not the interest of the state. And Dangote felt that no, he wasn't going to do all of that. The businessman is more interested in the business than trying to satisfy the personal interest of a governor. But those are all allegations. The story is that, look, he approached the Ogun State government then to situate it in Ogun Waterside. They were not able to reach a reasonable agreement. Yeah, he changed his mind, he moved it to Lagos, and as we speak, the largest single trade refinery was moved from Ogun State to Lagos, and now it is in Lagos. That's the story. Who to blame or not to blame? Well, I think that's Ogun State people to decide.
Well, according to this report, Governor Abiodun trying to explain his own role, who said he was the chairman of the committee, and we all know that Abiodun, who also happens to be a big player in the oil and gas industry himself, he said he did everything possible to make sure that the project saw the light of day, but the then governor, perhaps having a personal axe to grind with the promoter of the refinery project, in person of Alhaji Aliko Dangote, frustrated all the efforts of Governor Abiodun and his committee. The immediate chairman, board of directors of the Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation, NDIC, Mrs. Roke Shokefun, who was then a commissioner, served as secretary of the committee, which engaged Dangote on the mega project. And what we have is that instead of showing enthusiasm towards hosting the project in the state, the former governor, that is Senator Ibikunle Amosun, brazenly opposed and obstructed efforts of the Abiodun-led committee in ensuring that the OKFTZ came into fruition. Well, just as Fuhad said, well, who's to blame, who's not to blame?
Well, it would be nice to get Ibikunle Amosun, the former governor's side of the story too. Now that they have said their own side of the story, I'm sure there will be a rejoinder. So we'll wait to see him react and see what exactly, tell us what exactly happened at that time.
Well, this statement is coming as a response or a reaction to when the governorship aspirant of the PDP, Segun Showunmi, blamed the incumbent governor for the loss of the, Dangote refinery from Ogun State. Yes. Well, for all Ogun people, it's a very, very painful one. But then, all is
we are happy in Lagos.
I will not
we are happy.
I will not send him for it.
But we wait to see what Ibikunle Amosun will say about it. He needs to tell us what happened.
We have cement factory. We are okay. Don't worry, we'll be fine. More details on page 16 of the Punch newspaper. Still on the front page of the Punch, we have here CBN revokes 179 microfinance banks and other licenses. And that is on page 35. May not seem too scary yet. We just need to get details, and as long as they're all insured, everyone will get their money. But what we have is the Central Bank of Nigeria has revoked the licenses of 179 microfinance banks in the country, as well as 4 primary mortgage banks and 3 finance banks. So it's a very long list of names. I don't expect that I would read every one of it, but you can get all of the details on page 35 of the Punch newspaper. And the CBN, or the gazettes, or the official gazette of the federal government, said that the licenses of the financial institutions were revoked because they ceased to carry on in Nigeria the type of business for which their license were issued for a continuous period of 6 months.
Now, I was actually waiting for the reason for the revocation.
Okay.
And you just mentioned it there.
And they failed to fulfill or comply with the conditions subject to which their licenses were granted, or they failed to comply with the obligation imposed upon them by the CBN in accordance with the provisions of Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act, BOFIA 2020, Act number 5. So they revoked their licenses by the powers conferred on the Central Bank of Nigeria. So there you have it, and more details on page 35. It actually has a list of the names of the microfinance banks, so if you have funds there, so you know what to do next. Hopefully they are insured by the NDIC. Above the masthead of the Punch, very quickly, Tribunal, Atiku Obi tackle Tinubu as hearing begins on Tuesday. That is on page 2. But before we move on from that story, Fuhad, they have consolidated, the petitions.
The cases, yeah.
Yes. What are your thoughts as regards that? Or do you think we should hear everybody, individually, or they all have almost the same prayers? So, what are your thoughts?
I think it's at the discretion of the court. Again, there are, timelines to these things. I think the court is also working with its own timelines, working very hard to ensure that these cases are resolved in good time. So, I'm sure they've looked at all the petitions and maybe just one or two differences here and there, like you just mentioned. So, okay, these are all similar cases. Let's consolidate it and have a joint hearing so that we can decide on each of those cases, and then, of course, we can move on. So, because again, this is not the final stage. The Supreme Court will also have to talk of these cases, So eventually, because I'm sure a lot of these litigants will still have to move these cases to the Supreme Court. So it's at the discretion of the court. Still, they decide to, merge everything together so that we have consolidated hearing. I think we have to wait to when the hearing proper starts at that level.
All right. Thank you very much. More details on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Still on trends in the papers on mainland 98.3 FM. We are moving on now to Vanguard, and just very quickly, we'll just take a few trending stories from Vanguard that we've not been able to take from the other papers. Although the major headlines, quite interesting. After May 29, Niger Republic will defend me. So, I keep reading that and it just makes me happy.
Now he's trying to tell you people that if you don't want me, some other countries want me.
It's really beautiful.
And talk about the fact that he has been able to build a very good relationship with our neighbors. He said he built a good relationship with Chad,
did he
with
build
India
a
and Cameroon.
relationship with our neighbors for Nigeria or for himself?
Well, again, from if I interpret what he's saying, I think it's majorly for himself. Because he kept saying that, look, I have a good relationship and they would defend me. So if you guys don't want me, Niger will take me. Remember that he gave some piece of cards.
He has a good relationship. Not that Nigeria has a good relationship with Niger.
If I interpret what he's saying correctly. You don't, you are trying to put words into my mouth. But what I'm saying is that, look, you remember I gave Niger some fleet of cards, the same way we built a rail line to Niger. So if he's saying he built a good relationship with Niger, it would have been nice to know whether it's about Nigeria or himself. But my interpretation of what he said yesterday looked as if he was talking about himself majorly. Well, it's fine. It's not a problem.
No, it's not a problem. We have here Afenifere saying that Nigerians won't miss Buhari. That's coming from Afenifere. We also have the Middle Belt Forum.
Should have been Afenifere won't miss Buhari.
They said, I'm quoting them. We also have Middle Belt Forum saying that it shows he's non-committal to Nigeria. That's coming from the MBF. While Pandef is well, that's the truth. While Pandef is saying Buhari's statement validates earlier speculations of ties with Niger. The
They have
story is
never denied that.
mm, mm. And there were there speculations.
That way, there are people who speculate that it's actually not from Nigeria, it's from Niger Republic and all of that.
Oh
I
yeah.
know it's from Nigeria, it's from Daura in Katsina State, but I think there are strong ties with Niger Republic. If it's family ties, if it's business ties, but the reality is that, look, he has never denied the fact that he has strong relations with the Niger Republic.
All right. More details on page 5 of Vanguard newspaper. Thank you very much, Fuhad. I'm enjoying this conversation. We also have on the front page of Vanguard newspaper 10th National Assembly leadership. 10th National yes, okay, I got that correct. 10th National Assembly leadership. It's been a while we talked about this. Anyways, what we have now on the story is how Tinubu Kwakwanso Paris Parley may alter permutations, and the story is on page 8. That conversation, just has been hanging. The Tinubu Kwakwanso meeting that happened in France. Yes. But now what we have is that ahead of the 13th inauguration of the 10th National Assembly, there are indications that the meeting between the President-elect Asiwaju Tinubu and the presidential candidate of the NNPP, Senator Rabiu Kwakwanso, may alter the zoning formula for presiding officers. What do you think? Very quickly, Fuhad.
So, the numbers are out there. The APC will be careful to think that they can on their own decide who becomes the principal officer. So they need to reach out to the opposition political
party. The opposition are more than the APC.
They have the numbers to really alter the calculation. So I think that's the reason why they are reaching out to the opposition. NNPP has a number of senators, a good number of senators, and House of Reps members as it is. I think recently Godswill Akpabio, the chosen one by the APC, also visited the Labour Party to seek their support. So the reality is that the APC and the chosen, aspirants for principal positions understand that they need to work with the National Assembly, and that's what they are doing. So I think that somehow the wish of the APC would come to bear, because I think they are playing their politics well. When I say politics, in reaching out and solidifying their base. So eventually we may see Senator Godswill Akpabio emerge as Senate President. We may see Senator Jibril Barawo emerge as Deputy Senate President, and as House of Reps, we may see Tajuddin Abbas emerge.
All right, but and then, generally speaking, Fuhad, is there anything to expect from the Tinubu Kwakwanso parley?
Kwakwanso has always been a strong ally of the president-elect. There's one thing people need to understand. Actually, Ajibola has met Tinubu. He said it's a long-term, lifetime ambition. And he has his friends, he has his, allies, political allies across the country.
Right.
If you have ever seen the body language of Kwakwanso, he's just someone that has a problem with Janduji. And we have always said that his interest was not really to become president. It was about Kano State.
All right, thank you.
And so I'm not surprised that he's in this romance, with Asiwaju. I'm not surprised.
The romance with Asiwaju. All right, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. That is all that we can take this morning. Those are the major trending stories across the papers this morning. Stay with us. We'll be back by 8:40 for Mainland Focus, where you be a part of the conversation. This is Mainland 98.3 FM. My name is Mobola Sandra. We'll be right back.